I think we're in good shape.
I may,
You
I
can go
may
ahead and
even,
get started, Stacey.
I may even present this way too, so. See,
We've definitely got a quorum and you can go ahead and get started, Stacey.
all right, hello, everyone. I'm Stacy Brecklin-Eggs. I'm the Emergency Management Director for the City of Flagstaff. And Daniel, you want to introduce yourself real quick? And I know you will when you get back up here, but
Hello, everybody. Daniel Kelly, Emergency Program Manager.
Ashlyn?
Hi, I'm Ashlyn Lithgow. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator.
And our fearless leader.
Oh.
I'll let Rick at least introduce himself. He's our division head.
Yeah, I'm Rick Tatter, Management Service Director. I'm thrilled to have this section in my division.
And then before I really start, a quick happy birthday, Chief Conley. Happy birthday.
Lord.
But I forgot. I won't sing though, because
Must be 40.
cry.
Yeah. Again.
But happy birthday. So we'll let everybody else just wish you a happy birthday. All right, so who is emergency management? And I'm kind of going to bounce between the two slides. This is kind of our mission statement for the city. Just because I hit it twice. All right, so our mission statement for the city of Flagstaff is to reduce loss of life, property in the city of Flagstaff through all hazards approach, focused on prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. And then our values, integrity, accountability, respect, collaboration, and professionalism to ensure the community is prepared, protected, and can recover from disasters. Really, this means a lot to us in emergency management and that all hazards approach. And I have to say a quick thank you to Ashlyn. She's the one who created the brochure that's in front of you. And so it kind of gives you a little snapshot. So thank you, Ashlyn, for the hard work on that. Looks great. All right, so why emergency management? We have kind of had emergency management in police and fire, and it's been we've been doing it, but we never formalized it. We never had a formal program. So in May of 22, the deputy city manager, Shannon, and others talked about it, and we actually created a formal program established under management services, which is a centralized division. And why emergency management? Again, it helps community prepare, respond, and recover from large emergency and incidents and disasters. We support all divisions. So I said centralized services. We work across every division. We help PROS, which is Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Events. We support fire, police, Public Works, all divisions throughout the city. So it really is a very centralized office that will respond and work with different divisions. We work with water services on their emergency response plans. If they have a spill, we will react and respond to that division also. So it really spans a lot in the city. We coordinate plan response and recovery across agencies, such as we work with NAU, emergency management. We work with the hospital. We work with county emergency management. We work with various agencies. We work with the Department of Emergency Management and Military Affairs, with FEMA. We work with all sorts of different agencies throughout the city also, such as Red Cross and other agencies. We coordinate planning, or we improve communication and decision-making during incidents. We help protect live property and critical services, and we coordinate resources. I think this is a really big one that and in the flooding in 2021, we had a lot of lack of resources. We needed additional vac trucks. We didn't have enough things to work in the culverts and everything. And we were able to coordinate and work with Tempe and have them bring trucks up. So we'll coordinate all those resources. That's what emergency management does. We'll help coordinate those. So if somebody comes to us and says, hey, we don't have enough of this, we're right in the incident, will help coordinate those resources, whether it's equipment or other things. And then we improve preparedness through training and exercises, which we all know that training and exercises are very important. Train, exercise, so that when the event happens and when an incident happens, we're trained up. We feel pretty comfortable stepping into it because we've trained and exercised. There we go. Oops, it's not like it's. There we go. I may have to step closer to the screen, that's why. This is our org chart. I oversee this section is grants, contracts, and emergency management. There's two programs. There's the grants and contracts that we have a grants and contracts manager and then specialist underneath that. And then the emergency management program that Daniel and I and Daniel oversees as the emergency program manager. And then the temporary coordinator that is Ashlyn. And then we have an admin assistant. Current operating budget, we have 257,432. Personnel, uniforms, conferences. This is really primarily personnel. This is heavy personnel costs. Our uniform budget's very minimal, and the conferences and stuff. So really our ongoing program is made up of personnel. And then we have some one-time that is for temporary EM coordinator, copying and printing, general operating supplies. And then we were able to get funding for a replacement emergency management truck. It just got approved by council last night and the requisition's in. So we're excited to get that truck. And then we were able to go to the budget team and get a couple $100,000 for potential emergency management grants. There's Homeland Security, PG grants, all sorts of different grants that were available to us that we can apply for. So we have a placeholder of funding for that. What we do, plan and prepare for emergencies before they happen. We reduce future risk through mitigation and preparedness. We spend a lot of time on mitigation and preparedness, and Daniel's later going to do a real deep dive into a lot of this stuff. We inform and educate public before, during, and after emergencies. We work very closely with the Public Information Office, Sarah Langley and her team, especially during an incident. They come on board with us, and we're constantly communicating with them and talking and trying to communicate, put press releases out to the public, communicating with our city manager's office and internal staff. We coordinate response during incidents, a lot of coordination efforts on our part, where we're kind of that hub and coordinating that whole wheel and all the spokes. We support recovery and help the community return to normal. So after a disaster, after a major flooding incident, we'll come in, we'll do the recovery effort and really try to get the community back to a normalcy and to back to regular everyday work. So prevention and mitigation, I keep bouncing too fast on it. It keeps going.
You gotta give it a second.
I know. I keep pointing it here. I'm not pointing it there. So prevention and mitigation. These are some projects. This is kind of stuff that we have accomplished and what we are doing now. So I'm going to go through some slides that talk about things that we've accomplished and what we're doing. Schultz Creek sediment basins. This was after the pipeline fire. We ended up realizing that the water that was coming down off the mountain was coming across 180 and flooding into Savannah, into the neighborhood. And so I was able to work with Water Services. We were able to get an emergency watershed protection grant. They came out, we walked the project, and we're able to get funding to mitigate this work. And that's that picture on your, I guess I can't tell on your right or left there. And we also got funding for the Schultz Creek Drainage Improvement Project across 180. That's that culvert that was put in. So that was another large mitigation project. And then the interbasin restoration, that was a $16 million grant. It was a Department of Emergency Management through the state. They were going to fund it. DFFM had funding available, and we were able to pitch to them that this project would help mitigate and restore our water line where we up on the mountain after the pipeline fire that was destroyed. And so we were able to get 16 million from DFFM to complete that mitigation project and that restoration. And then a lot of you are familiar with the Schultz, the Spruce Wash flood projects, the suite of projects. They had many in there. A number of these projects were grant funded with mitigation funds through hazard mitigation through state. We were able to help offset the bond and support it because, of course, contracts were coming in high, and we were able to get a lot of funding to help leverage the Spruce Wash bond. So those were another mitigation project. And in that mitigation project, that is the wedge project that's over there by the East Cedar. This actually was a $7 million project, and within the suite of projects that the Forest Service gave us 3.5 million, the city bond came up with the other half, and we're able to do that project. And then we're working with the Army Corps right now to do a mitigation project and the downtown lateral flood drainage project, and that's in design right now and getting ready to finish design and get construction funding. Oh, I'm gonna get my head. I want to go to the screen. So preparedness, some other things that we've accomplished and that are happening right now. We were able to, right when this program got kicked off, we right away knew we didn't really have a formal, we had an emergency operations plan, I think years ago, but we were able to hire a consultant and update and develop a new emergency operations plan. We're currently working with the county on the multi-jurisdiction hazard plan. We are hired a consultant that are working with us right now and in progress for the continuity of operations and continuity of government plan. And then Daniel's done a great job by bringing this to the forefront and working on a active shooter hostile event response plan and exercise. NAU is helping coordinate that effort. So a lot of the city staff are involved in that. And again, that gets to those plans and those exercises, and those trainings are so helpful for our crews and our staff to do. We were also able to help the airport because we do respond in our emergency management. And we were able to work with Brian Gall, the airport director team, to get some operational grant money and do an airport emergency plan. They had one, but it's being updated with the consultant, and then do a full-scale triennial full-scale exercise that's required by the airport every 3 years. So we were able to do that exercise with the airport, which was really invaluable, and learned a lot of things. And then Arizona Public Safety Service, they have a public safety power shutoff program for the last 3 years. We have been working very close with APS. We've met them down in Prescott. We've met them here. We've presented to the council on their program. So we're very actively involved with APS on that. And then trainings for first responders. Daniel's been really good about bringing trainings to our community and working on trainings and emergency management, taking that lead to do those trainings. And then lastly, a lot of people know about this side of the house. We, with Daniel's expertise and experience, brought together a public safety event task force. And this task force, we'll get into a little bit more about the task force and how many events that we've had, but we've had many from Vice President Harris coming here to Vice President's wife. Holiday events, our pine cone drop has been just huge. And so we've been able to help coordinate those events. Preparedness exercise. So I talked a little bit about the Operation Ready Flagstaff Airport full-scale exercise. This took months and months of planning to get this exercise up and running. And it was very successful. And like I said, we learned a lot and created an after action report and an improvement plan, and are working to use that plan to help us improve. with that, I get to have the privilege to invite Brian Gall up to our airport director to give kind of a quick airport testimonial on what EM does for you.
That's good. Thanks,
Thank
Stacy.
you.
Stacy mentioned I'm Brian Gall, Director of the Flagstaff Airport. Just wanted to take a few minutes to elaborate a little bit more on what Stacy's talked about previous or in her previous slides and how specifically that's helped us at the airport. So as Stacy mentioned, the EM team focuses a lot on planning, response, and recovery from incidents. And I think all three of those apply to the work they've done with us at the airport. So for example, she mentioned the airport emergency plan update. That was a big lift for us, and it was actually emergency management's idea to use the consultant to find some grant funding that we could use to improve that document. It's a document we've had for a long time, but it's in much better shape now. We've gone through this update with a good professional services firm to help us with that. That's sort of that initial planning phase. And the response, we can respond to actual incidents and also, of course, train to respond to those incidents. So we are required to have a major aircraft incident simulation every 3 years. That's the one, Operation Ready Flag Stacy talked about. Again, we use a consultant to help us with that this year. And I don't think that exercise would have been nearly as successful without EM's partnership in helping that. It was the largest one we've ever had and involved more than 25 agencies. We got to borrow an aircraft from the Air Force to use to make it even more realistic. Prior to that, we had mostly responded with units in-house and the some support from the Flagstaff Fire Department, but it was somewhat limited in scope. I think we learned a lot more from the incident because of the size we were able to make that exercise this year with EM's, or this last exercise with emergency management's help. In addition to that one, we are required to do certain security and TSA, Transportation Security Administration related exercises. That's part of our federal mandate. EM has helped us both write those simulations and run those simulations with our law enforcement partners. And then beyond just the planning and the exercises, when we do have incidents at the airport, and part of our airport emergency plan is the first call I make, as the first responders, as the aircraft rescue and firefighting team and Flagstaff Fire Department are responding to the incident, when the airport administrative staff is coming in to help sort of the back end of that response, the first call we make is to emergency management. And that's because emergency management is the organization that has those resources to bring in the things that we might not have here locally, or maybe not enough of here locally. So when we need, for example, to transport victims that are uninjured from an aircraft incident site, or places to hold community meetings or family reunification centers. Those are the calls I'm going to make to Stacy and Daniel to help bring in those resources from our outside agency partners. So without their help, I think we'd be in a much worse place, and definitely appreciate EM's role in helping stuff at the airport.
Thanks so much, Brian. It was a fun event. All right, so preparedness response events. This is just kind of a look back at 2024 and some of the special event planning that we worked on. Did 29 formal planning meetings over 10 months, and we did a lot of activations. You'll see, 4th of July all the way to the pine cone drop, the noon, the 10, the midnight, where is such a great event, but really brings out crowds. But this kind of gives you a snapshot of some of the stuff that we worked with on the preparedness and response events. We also do a lot of response. So again, a little look back into what we have been working on. We responded to the 2023 winter storm, to the flood hazard at culvert at Highway 180, which I showed you earlier, the construction that was done there after the flooding. Fire Station 5 was flooded out. I know Chief Gaylor was out with us at 10 o'clock, and Mark Wilson looking at the front of the fire station and the water flowing where the chooks couldn't even get out of the bay. So we respond to those events and we start help incidents. We responded to the JWP Harold Ranch Road crossing, South Mount Eldon. And then a lot of you knew and heard about the Lower Lake Mary Levee breach. Daniel and I responded out there to see what that incident looked like and what we could do to help on that response effort. And then the Camp Navajo fire. And then recovery. We spent a lot of time on the backside. So we're, pretty full cycle. We'll respond to the incident and then we'll do the recovery effort. And right now we have 4 declarations open. We're still to this day working, and I say to this day because 2019 seems like a long time ago. COVID, and the 2019 winter storm, the 2021 flooding, which I mentioned and showed some pictures of, and then the 2022 pipeline fire, which was that sediment basin and the inner basin work that we did. So we're still in recovery. We're still dealing with the state and with the federal government, with FEMA, to deal with this recovery effort. And then with this, I'm going to show a quick little video. I don't know if I hit it. This is a little video of a recovery effort at with our inner basin water line. And just thought it'd be a fun little video. We've won a lot of national awards with this project. Works. It's okay. So the, see if we can get this queued up, but this is won a national award and a number of regional award and a number of state awards. Well, it's a great video. Showed it at the national award. It worked. I saw it moving there. Yeah.
Sound for this group.
Fine. Goes. That was a two-year disaster recovery effort. Like I said, that won a number of national and regional awards, but to kind of show you what it's a recovery project that we've been working on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel's going to do a deep dive into what emergency management is.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Daniel Kelly, and I'm the Emergency Program Manager. So my intent as I walk through this next part of the presentation is not to make you an expert on EM, but to give you enough information so you walk away going, okay, I understand the basic fundamental mission of EM and what they bring to the table and why it's important to include in this ballot measure perspective. All right, what is emergency management? Emergency management is a core public safety function that is tasked with ensuring the community, which is the city of Flagstaff, right, to be able to prepare for, mitigate against, respond to, recover from large-scale emergencies and disasters. So the importance there is to remember the large scale. EMS, fire, PD, they respond to emergencies every single day, hundreds of times, right, in a week. My job is not to make sure that they are equipped to respond to cardiac arrests, to man downs, to domestic violence calls. My job is to make sure that they are prepared and equipped on the back end for larger scale disasters that take resources that they're pulling from other jurisdictions, other partners, right? Majority of people think that just fire and police are the ones handling emergencies. Most of the time that's correct. But sometimes on the back end, you have emergency management working behind the scenes. We're not out in the forefront. We're more on the back end, handling the stuff that take loads off of police and fire's plates so that they can focus on their mission set. I don't care about tactics. Police and fire care about tactics, right? I care about what they need. I can anticipate. I can look at okay, we're looking at a multiple operational period here, so I can start to look down the road. I can see, hey, we need to pull in public works. I need to communicate with the city manager's office and with the senior and elected. That's the role of emergency management, is to bring together city departments and divisions and make sure we're all working off the same information and same priorities. All right, prevention phase. Oh, let me go back 1 second. So real fast, I'm gonna walk through the phases of emergency management: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So I'll deep dive a little bit into these and give you some normal actions that you can expect. The first phase is prevention phase. PD lives in this phase every single day. Emergency management, so the goal of this phase is to reduce the likelihood of emergencies from occurring. You're looking to stop them, right? So terrorist attack or anything like that is in prevention, but on the EM side of prevention, we're talking evacuation plannings. We're talking alert and warnings, right? We're looking to reduce the chance of something bad happening. So that is the intent of the preparedness phase, prevention phase. The public doesn't often see this work that's completed here because it's more behind the curtains type of thing. And again, if I have a tendency to talk really fast, so if I talk too fast, feel free to stop me. And some other important things that we tackle during the prevention phase is identifying our hazards, right? Our risks and our vulnerabilities. And we're formulating the risks so we can formulate a plan in the preparedness and the mitigation phase on addressing those hazards. Next phase, mitigation phase, Stacy talked about earlier. The goal is to reduce the long-term impacts of disasters by preventing or minimizing future damage. The key thing is here minimizing. Mitigation, you're looking to permanently reduce the risk of it happening again. Mitigation is very impactful. It plays into recovery, which we will go into depth later. But mitigation is where the money is spent well. So FEMA 10 years ago put out that every dollar spent on mitigation saves $6 in disaster recovery costs. They have now updated that figure last year to say every $1 that's put into mitigation saves $13 in disaster recovery costs. Reason being, everything's more expensive nowadays, right? Personnel costs are more expensive. Operating capital costs are more expensive. That's why every single time you hear about a major disaster, it's always the most expensive disaster in history, because everything costs more. Insurance, everything, right? And during wildfire, they talked about, a study was brought up about the potential of $1 billion disaster happening downtown. So if we put the $1 to $13 ratio, to prevent, this is theoretical, right? A $1 billion disaster, it would require $76 million in mitigation. So when you put the funds side by side, it's a no-brainer. But mitigation is often overlooked and it's boring work, right? It's hard to see the value of putting forth $20 million for a flood control project that, you know, it hasn't flooded around in this neighborhood for 10, 15 years. Why do we need this project? It's all about science and modeling. We work hand in hand with water services, stormwater. Wildland fire is excellent in their mitigation, their forest thinning that they do, that they showcase very well. All falls under the mitigation phase. And you'll hear me talk a lot about the program, the emergency management program. It's not just emergency management who's a part of this. Yes, we're spearheading this, we're coordinating this, but public work plays a part in the program, water services, pros, fire, PD, the whole city, all city divisions play a role in the program, IT as well. Yeah, the mitigation phase is often overlooked, but it is one of the important ones investment wise. All right, preparedness phase. This is the money phase. The goal of the preparedness phase is to ensure people, plans, and resources are ready to respond effectively when the bell is called, when the tone comes out, right? When the incident happens. This is where we build the system before the emergency happens. You don't want to be trying to build it during the incident or after the incident. This is where we're developing plans, we're training our resources, we're testing our equipment, we're following POTI, right? Plan, organize, equip, train, and exercise. The 5 steps. We're constantly in the preparedness phase going over and over again. You can have a fire. You can grant fire 100 personnel today. They can be signed. But if fire doesn't have the time to spend with them in the preparedness phase, they're just at their beck and call, it's not going to equate to efficiency during the disaster, right? Because those firefighters, they're not going to be trained. They're not going to be trained on the equipment, on the protocols, anything like that. So that's why the preparedness phase is very important. If you show a lack of dedication to this phase, it will bleed into the response phase. Now, it's a clear sign. When the response is chaotic, it's most likely due to a failure of the preparedness phase. That is why police take this very seriously. That's why the fire department takes this very seriously. They laid it out, their training and training program to you guys in depth. EM, I work with my counterparts over the PD and fire to help organize training. I am certified to teach NIMS and ICS in the state of Arizona. So therefore, we team up a lot. I'm trying to get more from fire. As soon as we can get some more through there, it'd be fantastic. But it takes time, right? It's a lot of documentation, a lot of classes you have to show you've been through. Even though they are very experienced trainers over there in fire at their department, the state won't let them teach ICS. So there's little hiccups that come up. That's why I am the only certified NIMS and ICS trainer, except for one. Katie Brown is coming on board, which I'm highly excited about. During this phase, we're also, without preparedness, the response time is slower. Less coordinated, like I said, and more dangerous. So again, if you are not taking your time and committed to the preparedness phase with assessment, planning, preparation, evaluation, it will bleed into the response. All right, so now we're in the response phase. This is the lights and sirens, the media's there, the responses. Everybody's familiar with it. It's the coordination and management of resources and actions to protect life, property, and critical services during a time of emergency. we are activating the Emergency Operations Center during this time if it's large enough. We are managing, allocating resources. We're communicating with the senior elected and senior and elected, the policy group, which makes up the mayor, vice mayor, and the city manager's office, and legal. We are ensuring resources are where they need to be. We're the go behind, right? So during the response phase, my job is to make sure that, again, police and fire are able to focus on the tactics. I will handle the back end. I'll start to, they need to, hey, we're gonna need equipment, this piece of equipment in 12 hours. I can start to work those requests, right? I'm making sure that implement public warnings. I'm making sure that the public warnings are going out to the appropriate people and to on time. And now that, I'll invite up Chief Gaylord to say something.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Gaylord, the fire chief. Just want to, kind of provide some perspective on the emergency management function in Flagstaff. All of those services and programs that are being highlighted this evening, any of those are required by federal law for us to participate in. The consequence of not participating in those programs, we don't get access to some of the recovery efforts that Stacy did a really nice job talking about the city of Flagstaff has benefited by. So it's real work, it's programmatic, has to be done all the time. And so I think it's just really important to note that until Daniel was hired and Stacy was provided oversight responsibilities, there was no full-time employee at the city of Flagstaff doing emergency management. And that was really important. Stacy, very versed, as you can tell, with the recovery function. It's, matter of fact, there's a little nightmare in my back of my mind where she finally decides to retire, and our ability to create that kind of expertise in recovery is going to be really important to replace. So it's just important to note that all that programmatic work needs to be done. And then, I try to oversimplify things, but critical areas of responsibility during response. If you could imagine, our number one risk is wildland fire, and the fire department has a lot of expertise, incident management, has the ability to support the emergency operations, emergency management function, but they're all at the fire. And so that expertise is typically not available during that type of a risk. But emergency, we can come in and we can participate in the overall emergency operations support. The ability for us to have that very important function in place during an actual emergency, and particularly wildland fires, is, it's super important. I remember quite a number of years ago, I went to my boss and I said, we got to quit doing this part-time. We're having a federal declaration then at that time, almost every 18 months. The federal declarations, as you've seen, take years and years to process to get those funds, those recovery funds, back to the city. And then those recovery funds are typically mitigating the risk. So those projects are then putting the restoration efforts towards, let's not do this again. So it's super important for us to kind of, in my mind, keep that perspective about what they do and how that is important. I think the two functions during response that emergency management is responsible for, one is public information. And by that, also keeping our policymakers informed. There's a whole set of state statutes that under an emergency declaration come into play. And now the city has a lot of additional powers and authorities to respond. It takes coordination. Emergency management sets up the council, and particularly during times of declaration, the mayor, for success by keeping them informed. The other piece is resources. So the assumption is in most of the disaster scenarios that you might envision, the city who has potentially more resources than any other local government in this county, we can, and you've heard this already, we're one incident organizations. We can quickly be overrun by incidents that will exceed our capability to respond. And so emergency management is a critical player for us to access resources, and just from the hierarchy to the county for resources, through the county, through the state, and then federal for additional resources if we need it. Whether that resource is, I've had a experience where we needed to plug a drainage line. Wasn't in this community, it was another community. We had to call emergency management at the county level. They called the feds or the state. The state located the exact size plug we needed to stop flooding, and all it was a plug. But it took that kind of coordination to find that resource and get it to our community where we could deploy it. And so that's a really important part of what they do as well. There's a whole system of accessing resources, whether it's public works resources, police resources, fire resources, building inspectors. You can access those. It takes that coordination, and during real time, it can't be the responding entity. It's to be emergency managers. So that's my comments.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chief. All right, so now we're going to talk about the recovery phase for a little bit here. This is an extremely important phase, like Chief just talked about, right? The goal here is to restore the community as close to normal or improve conditions as efficiently and safely as possible after an incident. Key phrase, as close to normal as possible. Community sometimes, the majority of times, has the unrealistic expectation after disaster rolls through that the community is going to be rebuilt as it was. That's just not possible, right? We're not going to be able to reconfigure, rebuild the charm that the local mom and pop store had before, right? The color scheme, the landscape's going to change because a disaster came through. So therefore, this is why recovery and mitigation go hand in hand right now. During the recovery process, you're bringing in the mitigation best practices, and you're helping to build resilience in the community. You're taking advantage of this phase to build more resilience in to prevent that disaster or to lessen the chance of that disaster happening again, right? So fire, they're fantastic about trying to think about ways to build homes that are more fire resistant, right? Neil talked about that. It's a fantastic way. That was brought out from recovery projects from other states, right? So there's two different phases within this phase. There's the short-term recovery, and then there's a long-term recovery. The short-term recovery, you're talking 0 to 72 hours out. And then long-term recovery is 72 hours to weeks, months, years. The Route 91 Harvest Festival, the shooting in Las Vegas, that happened a decade ago, a long time ago. Las Vegas is still technically in the recovery phase from that incident because they opened up resiliency hubs afterwards, and they're providing mental health care through these resiliency hubs to those who were there that day, to the first responders, and to family members who lost somebody that day. So until people stop coming to those resiliency hubs, they're still going to be in recovery phase. Like right now, Stacy highlighted that we're still trying to close out disaster from 2019. Right? So a lot of it's due to the lack of dedicated personnel that was full-time in here in the emergency management position. But also, it's because the state, Arizona is a controlled state. which means they will act as a barrier between us and the feds at all points in time. So if we have any communication with the feds, it goes through the state first, and the state will talk to the feds. And then by the time we send them information that the feds want, and then the feds look at it and send the information back, we're talking weeks, if not months, because the state also has 30, 40 different disasters they're trying to close out. So the recovery phase is the longest phase, and you'd never know when you're finally going to turn the table. One successful story, we are finally turning the table. The clock on the spruce wash flood control projects. That mitigation, we're changing that over soon because the suite is done from recovery back into just normal operations. So this is the longest and most expensive phase. This is where you're trying to get your money back. It's 75-25 splits. Some states split 75% reimbursed out of what you spent, and then you eat that 25% cost. Some states will split that 25%. Arizona is not one of those. So you will never recap. If you spent $100 million on disaster, you're not going to get back $100 million. You're only going to get back at best 75%. And I'll go into why that's more complicated in a little bit with a graphic that pops up later on. Emergency management is coordinating this phase the entire time. Right? So years down the road, still coordinating disaster recovery from 2019. Even though I wasn't an employee here, I didn't live here, I was in a completely different state, I'm still helping to coordinate that disaster from then. Without this function, the city risks losing reimbursement and economic impacts. All right, so now we got through the boring stuff, right? Now I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up, put a bow on it. So I know prevention is not on here, but prevention and mitigation, they go hand in hand, right? We're left of boom. Preparedness phase, and then your boom happens, which is response, and then back into recovery. It is not uncommon for me to spend a day. So today alone, I could be in every single one of these phases. I could be attending a mitigation meeting on a project. I could be handling evacuation planning for prevention, preparedness. I'm coordinating with our training coordinators on an upcoming class, or I'm providing a class. We may have an incident happen, law enforcement, fire, whatever, water services, and then recovery. I have to meet with DEMA about a recovery project. So there's not just, I can't just dedicate a week to each phase. I'm breaking my days up into each phase pretty much, which is very complicated, and it slows the progress of a lot of the issues. All right, current operations. Right now, we have one FTE that is dedicated to the program, and it's me. I'm the only subject matter specialist for the city who is dedicated in emergency management. I'm responsible for operations planning, training and exercises, public education and outreach, incident coordination, grants, cost reimbursement, and coordination with the airport, like Brian talked about. The airport is very unique. Sometimes, most times, the airport will have its own EM just dedicated to them. But our airport's not that big to need that. So but it's also a city-owned airport, so that's why it falls under the umbrella. But the airport is a whole different monster. Just a little bit ago, I was talking with Brian, and he's talking about FAA regulations. That is some complicated language to get down. So normal statute requirements that I play by every day when I step foot on the airport grounds, some of them are completely out the window, and now I have to deal with a whole different statute requirements. All right, So now let's talk about our limitations and impacts. As you see, single full-time EM staff, that limits my ability to expand the program. I've expanded it as much as I possibly can. I am stretched thin. I tend to say yes too much. But now the bandwidth is finally reaching its max peak. The city's limits, if something was to happen, if a large incident was to happen, a large wildfire, it was to pull me away for a week or 2 weeks for the incident, then start the disaster recovery process, that's a week to 2 weeks that the program is not being touched. If I'm not in that seat, if I'm on vacation, whatever, that program is not being touched. Now, there's incidences where mitigation projects, where we lean heavily on the subject matter experts, right? Water services, fire, public works. Those can keep going as long as the project, as long as they don't need EM to step in for funding reasons or anything like that. So the limitations of only having one FTE is it's pretty costly. And then also, it's not just about day-to-day emergencies. It's about the ensuring the city is prepared and resilient for the large-scale events that happen, right? All right, so now we're gonna touch down into the emergency management response. So there's two different terms that we go by in the public safety field. It's blue sky days and gray sky days. And it doesn't actually have to correlate with the weather. So the blue sky days are non-incident, non-emergency, right? So we're doing our planning, we're doing our readiness. This is where the majority of our work takes place. We're building plans, training agencies, and preparing the systems. We're investing in preparedness and prevention and mitigation, right? And then coordination. So the big thing about EM is coordination and relationships and resources. That is the three biggest things for EM that we bring to the table. Let's the idea again, preparedness, recovery, and resilience, community education. This is where it's happening. Outreach, the long-term recovery, the planning for them, and then the cost management, right? And then we have gray sky days. So an incident happens, we're now getting pulled in for, and when it says coordinate citywide operations, what it means is, again, the back end. Police and fire and EMS, they're doing the tactics. I'm handling the back end. I'm seeing what I can pull off of their plate. They don't need to make that call to Public Works. They can focus on the incident. I'll place that call. I'll tell them, hey, send a representative to the command post, or hey, PD wants you to block off this street, right? And then I'm communicating with the city manager's office on what is happening, how severe is it, who's in charge, right? So is it police, fire, water services, public works, who is it? And then what resources are needed. So that initial capture will kind of give just a snapshot to the senior staff on how big of an incident is it, and how much time do they need to pull away. It all depends though on the communication flow. They're reliant on me, and I promised them that these updates will be timely. My goal and my objective is to, when I can, right? A brief, and then when the incident commander or the subject matter specialist has stabilized the incident, I'll arrange for a briefing with them, with the city manager's office and the elected. They have a duty to be well informed, the city manager's office and elected by the constituents. And it is my job to make sure they are fed that information. The other thing is to make sure that the clear incident command and effective resources are being utilized during emergencies. It's too easy for us to get siloed on these really big, complex incidents. So it's the role of EM to, again, I don't have to worry about tactics, so I stand back, say, hey, police fire, let's do a quick huddle real fast. I think we're duplicating tasks, right? And then I can just say, hey, you know what? I think you need to think about getting a planning section chief in here, liaison. I can make suggestions that way to better make their life easier. Because again, during chaos, it's controlled chaos, right? That's what we're aiming for. They need to be focused on the frontline tasks, not the back end. I can be handling about that. All right, so on this slide at the top, you'll see we're called community lifelines. There's 8 of them, and they are a fantastic snapshot of a situation update. FEMA rolled these out about 6-7 years ago, and how it works is we'll just walk through it actually. So the first one is safety and security. That's police, fire, and emergency services. The second one is food, water, and shelter. That's your clean food. That's your food supply. That's your safe places to stay. The third one, health and medical. It's your hospitals, your doctors, and your medical in your medicine. Fourth one is water systems. So your drinking water and your wastewater. Yeah, the fifth one is energy and fuel. It's electricity and fuel. 6 is communications. That's your phone. That's your internet. That's your radios. That's your emergency alerts. The 7th is transportation. That's your roads, your bridges, your airports, your public transit. And the 8th one is hazardous materials, right? Just keeping dangerous chemicals and waste under control. A good way to look at and remember the community lifelines is think of it as the basic things that we need to live and to stay safe, right? Another way to look at it is think of it as a table. Hear myself. It's a table. If one leg breaks, if one leg breaks, the table can stay stable, right? It'll wobble a little bit, but if multiple legs break, the table falls. And that's when it's a very bad day. But pause real sec. But now.
Just to.
That's good, Shannon. Hates me. Yeah, the community lifelines are fantastic snapshot of an incident. How it works is right now they're all green. That means operations are good. There's no disruption. I can change one to yellow. That means the lifeline is still operational, but has been some disruptions, but it's still operational. Red, bad day. That lifeline is down and it's non-operational. There's major problems. I have been a part of sending up sit reps where there are 2 reds and 3 ambers on there. That's not a fun one to send up, right? Means things are going south really fast. Emergency management. So my job is to monitor these lifelines during all times, during blue skies and gray skies, to make sure that we are running efficiently and staying on the go status. If there's a reason to change this to amber, that's communication. It's going out. During COVID is a perfect example. The food supply chain, right? It would go amber because there's disruption, but it would never go red because there wasn't a complete shutdown of the food supply. Same with health and medical. They would be overran. They'll be they closed surgeries, stuff like that. So we went amber. Only a couple times did it go red. So, and then looking else past the lifelines, some things that EM does during and after the incident is incident coordination. So for the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, which is a resource hub for the incident itself, I can act as the EOC manager or director for it, and then the planning section chief. I can act as a liaison officer or agency representative when coordinating outside city limits, right? And then also work with Red Cross and managing shelters, work with the county health on human services and the other basic essential functions. And communication and alignment, maintaining that all of our stakeholders are aligned. And how that works is I provide out the information on the information, and therefore we're all working from the same priorities. We're aligned in our mission set. All right, so this is the incident complexity chart. Wanted to show this because every single day, police and fire and EMS, they're handling type 5 incidents every single day. That is what they live in. That's where they're breathing in, right? When it gets elevated to type 4, that's when we are talking multiple resources and then multiple operational periods, as demonstrated by the clock on the right. This is still a common occurrence. A large house fire, as fire mentioned in their briefing. They're calling in for a large house fire. It's all fire units inside the city. It's Summit and it's Highlands as well. Whether it's to respond to the incident or even backfill stations, right? So you're still calling in resources. PD is out there for site security, right? So they're stationed there. They need to find some way to backfill their normal patrol if it's extended amount of time. If we're a type 3, your large wildfires that happen in this area, the tunnel fire, I'm sure was a type 3, maybe even type 2. Type 1 is a very bad day. That is catastrophic. It could be a wildfire, rips through town. But the type 1s are pretty rare. They're the ones that require a multiple operational response and hundreds of personnel and resources. And that's type 1s and type 2s. Those are given federally presidential declared disaster. Type 3s and type 4s, you're looking at your state declared disasters, right? Especially type 3. Type 4 is pushing it. But yeah, I wanted to show that even during small incidents, it still takes multiple departments and partners and resources to answer those. Type 5's PD can go to a DV and they may need 6 to 7 of their officers, right? So that's draining their own resources, and they may call in the sheriff's department for additional officers there, or to kind of backfill their beats that they have had to move off of. So again, type 3, 4, and 5 are common, but they still require a significant amount of work. All right, so let's talk about Flagstaff's risk environment. It's very unique. Not only do you have wildfires, you have post-wildfire flooding, you have winter weather, winter storms, you have transportations, the rail line that goes through town, 150 trains a day, and now they're adding a third rail. So that's a lot of trains a day who are going to go through the center of town. And it's just, I don't mean to be a doom and gloom here, but it's not if a train derails in the city of Flagstaff. It's just a matter of when, right? Same with wildfires. You can't prevent wildfires, but you can mitigate them as best you can. Cyber incidents, you can try your best to prevent, but nowadays, cyber is one of the go-tos, and that falls into the risk environment. These risks all affect multiple departments. So again, the coordination, the communication, those all come into play here. Public health, supply chains, special events. Special events is a huge draw on our resources. We are vulnerable here, and if a bad actor ever gets wind of that, the PD does a fantastic job in coming up with a site security plan. Our seasonal tourism, they keep going up, right? And we're hopeful that they keep going up. So that means money for the city. So all these environments that surround Flagstaff are very, very unique, and they come with complex factors. Chief Conley, come on up.
Stacy and Daniel, just thank you for giving me a moment here. To everybody on the committee, appreciate you very much and thank you for your time. It means a lot. We always talk about to effectively lead, you need to be effectively managed. And I'll take that same concept. So I had this conversation with Shannon. I'll take that same concept and say to effectively execute a mission, whether unplanned or planned, you need to be effectively managed. And so I can't emphasize enough how vital it is for the airport, the fire department, and the police department at times to have the ability to be managed in our operations as we are intimately focused on what we're trying to accomplish in those points in time. One of the first things that I researched, and I don't know if we'll get feedback from here. One of the first things that I researched when I came here was this department. I think with Shannon and the fire chief's leadership in 2022, there was a conversation about that, and I was grateful. And we should be grateful we have this in our city. But to be completely honest, these types of departments have been in cities for 25 years, optimally staffed and providing that really poignant and important support. The interwovenness and complexity of public safety nowadays, you're seeing it. As expressed by both Stacy and Daniel, is paramount. So when we talk about preparedness, coordination, and support, we in the Flag PD cannot do our job without having this component as part of our scaffolding. And I know we talk a lot about big disasters and things like that, but I know there's a lot of community leaders, and as we look for additional ways to create just additional greatness in this community through events in the downtown, which bring in a tremendous amount of positiveness to everybody. To have a high functioning emergency management that is helping us coordinate 30,000 people downtown in a safe way is paramount. The fire chief and I and our teams do not have the time or the ability to manage what we need to get done on the ground in that moment of time while keeping this high level picture of the coordination of all the resources. And you saw a little bit there about the tasks and the different levels and tiers within this. You know, I'll say as a recent testimonial, if you're telling me that this police department in this community is going to have a 2-hour multiple series of gun battles with a person with an AR, and then you're going to crash a helicopter on top of my crime scene, I'm going to have 5 law enforcement agencies and the rest of the city trying to operationalize that in partnership with an NTSB, I buckle at my knees and having to look at fire department and myself and say, how am I going to manage all this? So the ability to communicate in real time through raves and community messaging is something we need coordination from them. The ability to put multiple light trucks on a crashed helicopter, multiple light trucks and things like that into a neighborhood that has casings and bullet holes everywhere. The ability to protect our streets and then work through those things is not done by a police department or a fire department. It's done by an optimally staffed and managed emergency management, both in a planned and pre-planned, unplanned way. And so I cannot say enough about how important that is in the management. You also hear us talk about the coordination of things like it's a sad commentary, but it's a real commentary in this society now where we have to prepare our community members and our employees for the day that somebody comes through a door and is attempting to gun everybody down. And we have the ability to train, teach, coach, and execute on those in PD and fire. But what we don't have the capacity to do is coordinate and wrangle and manage how we deploy on those. And so this is where we have to lean into a high functioning, properly staffed, modern emergency management. Disasters come in many forms. And I can't think of a community with its intimate interaction with Mother Nature and what could be potential for our wildland fire guys and our fire departments and our airport. And then just for these police officers in this city, as the city continues to grow, that to have this function is critical for us. So I just wanted to be able to share with everybody online and those that are in the room how this is not a luxury item in public safety in 2026 based on the complexity and expectations. I mean, I think sometimes we reflect and look internally at ourselves, but there is an expectation in this community that we handle business in a way that is elite and important, and having ability to prepare, coordinate, and be supported in fire and PD in the airport by an entity it is just super important. I just want to be able to share that with.
Chair Levin, although he couldn't be with us today, that we as a team recognize the valor of you and your department, as well as our Arizona DPS officers with the recent incident. And so just wanted to say thank you. And if we could enjoy a moment of silence and remembrance.
Yeah, and to Chair Levin and this committee, I know as I look around the room and I look online at the names, I can't tell you how grateful all of us are for your love and support through this. But I also just want to say we have to create growth and goodness out of this. We have to learn from it, and we have to be able to look at this and then say that we're going to do something meaningful and productive into the future, having experienced this now in our city and what we need to do. And I think that's why this conversation is so timely and why we're all here in this room together. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Let's talk about what these risks mean for Flagstaff. Like Chief said, they're not disasters, are not single events. They're not all the same. They're all different, and they're all highly complex in their own unique ways. A cyber incident, cyber attack, it can cripple the city operations, just like a wildfire can, just like a law enforcement incident can, right? It is. So one is not greater than the other. It's just the amount of resources and personnel that have to go into it. and the expertise, right? It is, so disasters, it's important that we remember they're not single day events. They carry on for months and for years, not just for those affected, but for the community reeling as well. Disaster assistance, we all know, what's going on at the federal level. It's, there's a lot going on, right? But it's not all bad. There is some good that comes out of chaos. Right now, there is a House bill that has been proposed to fix FEMA. And it was sent, it got out of the Department of Transportation and Homeland Security Committee, and it's now on the House floor. And went there in September for a full vote that will significantly change FEMA. Inside the emergency management profession, we have been calling for a change for FEMA for about 10 years now. Where it's at kind of prohibits a lot of it. The fact that the FEMA director, administrator doesn't report up to the president is a problem that has been identified. This bill will help fix it. It would also help out with disaster recovery. So in this bill, as it stands today, right, we'll see what the final version says, but there's hard deadlines on the federal government when it comes to disaster reimbursements. They're going to use block grants now. For some disasters, there's a timetable of 10 days. They have 10 days to cut a check to the local jurisdiction with proof, right? 10 days instead of years. And then for major disasters, you have 180 days to approve the projects and the disaster recovery. Or if they fail to provide an answer within 180 days, it's an automatic cut a check, write it. So there's consequences in there for FEMA. So that's why I said there's some good that comes out of chaos sometimes. There's some change, the potential change that will streamline our disaster recovery process. But then there's the downsides, right? Less FEMA size, they're going to get smaller, more likely, which means we have to be more resilient at the local level and less dependent on the federal level. The states need to do the same thing. They're looking inwards and they're like, okay, we're going to have to handle these large responses in-house more often. And the large deployment of FEMA personnel that you see normally, you're not going to see probably. But then again, you only see those, and I've dealt with those on the East Coast. You don't see the large FEMA deployments on the West Coast. For the wildfires here, you haven't seen those. The Palisades fire, there was maybe 10 FEMA personnel that deployed out there, right? So it's the hurricanes, tornadoes, stuff like that. They would do the mass flooding of resources. And one other thing that I want to note is that there appears to be a new model that's coming into play here. It is a model that the European countries have utilized for the past 10 to 15 years. In the States, in the United States, we judge our system based off of how quickly we got resources to the affected area, to the incident. In Europe, their model is how efficiently can that system self-sustain itself before the help arrives. Here, we tell ourselves 72 hours. We need to self-sustain for 72 hours. The model that they're possibly looking to, it's not 72 hours. We're talking weeks, right? Before resources and help gets to us. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is. I'm just saying there's similarities that we're seeing between what is being proposed and coming out of the federal level and what's taking place in Europe. So we need to, federal assistance is uncertain, right? We don't know what it's going to look like until the final bill is passed. Again, emergency management, this is our job to help ensure the city recovers faster, safer, and is more resilient than it was before. So we're looking at best practices. Now, I promised you earlier in the slideshow about disaster recovery. This graphic here on the right, it is very telling. So those are the steps that are condensed in disaster and declaration of disaster and then the recovery process. What you see there, that is hundreds of meetings, hundreds of hours of sitting through with the state, with the feds, with your local partners. You're trying to comb through data. It is a lot of work to close out disaster. So that right there is hundreds of meetings and hundreds of hours. The fact that I'm still putting in hours for 2019, it just kind of shows, right? Incident that happened there. We have 6 open disasters currently right now. 2 of them are for 2021 flooding. So again, disaster recovery as it stands right now takes a very long time. I welcome the 180-day timeline that is proposed in this bill. Whether it's going to go through, I don't know. That's not for me. All right, so again, what this means for our community, we need to be less dependent on help coming from outside. We need to be more resilient and inside. And as Chief Connolly would say, we cannibalize. Right? We look to cannibalize our own resources before we go out. We already do a fantastic job of that, but we need to constantly look at and evaluate where we can do better. Recovery takes takes years, not months. It takes serious man hours to complete that. And you have to be able to devote best practices, right, into that phase. The state and local level, we're being asked to take on more of the load from the federal government. They're saying they'll bring the purse still, but they're not going to bring the personnel. So that means our relationships with our neighboring jurisdictions, which is already strong, but now we need to talk about our New Mexico partners, our Utah partners, our California partners. And that is where the state will come in and help coordinate that for us. But we're going to need to be reliant on regions, right? We're all going to, and then therefore, same thing. We are being asked, we're asking people to be able to come here during our time of need. They're going to ask the same of us. Why this matters? Again, investing locally means better readiness, faster response, and a quicker recovery. And we need to make sure that Flagstaff can handle our own emergencies without having to wait for outside resources. Fire, if there's a large fire up here, fire departments are going together. If we need resources out of the valley or a police issue, we're looking at maybe 4 hours at best. Most likely, any resources we request from the valley, they're going to say, okay, next operational period, we'll have it up to you. Because you have to allow for them to pull members of the valley, right? You have to see who's willing and who's able to respond, who has that resource that is needed for that moment. It could be a piece of equipment, could be a subject matter specialist, who knows? And then if a task force needs to be formed, that's 12 hours to 24 hours. So it's a long time before help can get up here. We're very isolated up here. So again, we need to focus on our own resilience and ensure that we are putting our energy where it needs to be put, and we're investing where it needs to be invested. It all ties together. All these phases, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response and recovery, they all bleed into each other. And you can't just ignore a phase because it will show up. All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
That was great, Daniel, and that really, I do think that was a good deep dive and kind of really shared what EM does. And the phases, and Daniel's right, we're in them constantly. We're bouncing back and forth. We might be doing a mitigation project and then we're responding. We're all over the board. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull this to the end. Thanks for hanging in there. Hope everybody's hanging in with us for this presentation. So funding needs. So what we're looking for in this public safety measure is personnel. This emergency management takes staff. It takes personnel. You saw our current budget is primarily personnel. And so we're looking to get a senior emergency management coordinator, 2 EM coordinators, and then 1 radio technician. I know during the fire presentation, Casey mentioned it a little bit, but we know right now we work with NAU and they have a technician that services all our radios, but they're doing NAUs, they're doing cities, fires, police. And so we're really looking to help maybe pull this in-house or coordinate with NAU. And so we're looking at maybe getting a radio technician here that can service the number of radios that fire has and PD and EM. We're also looking at equipment and infrastructure, response and support vehicles for our coordinators. Daniel and I each have one that we can respond to. Emergency operations and field equipment, such as light bars, traffic barricades, those kind of things that we would need to be able to respond. And mobile emergency response command trailer. I know police department had one in there for on-scene incidents. This would be a emergency response trailer for off-scene. It would be a command trailer away from the scene itself and more of an emergency operations trailer if we have to be out at a wildfire, but we're not at the fire location. We're away from the fire, but still emergency management is coordinating that event. And then technology systems. We're constantly looking at weather systems. We work with the National Weather Service. We're looking at some other software that helps predict weather, that helps us watch what's happening with our weather. Emergency alert and evacuation notification system. We're currently using RAVE. Chief mentioned that, but we work closely with the county that also has RAVE, but the city also has RAVE for internal purposes. And then the county has it for external that we work with for notifying the external. And then lastly, just AI support modeling and forecasting. We just had a demo not too long ago with a company, and they really are working to kind of coordinate their software so that we're all looking at one dashboard. And so we're kind of looking at those systems, the softwares that this could fund. Next would be additional funds we would need for planning and preparedness. We're constantly looking at plans. I said we did the emergency operations plan. We're doing the COOP and COG, the continuity of government right now. And we're looking to do, we now need to do a disaster recovery plan that we don't have. Citywide evacuation plan. We do have evacuation maps and zones identified, but we don't have an actual plan. So we're looking to do that. And then we're constantly needing to update our plans. And then training and exercises, we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the active shooter one, the one at the airport. We're constantly looking to do training and exercises. So we would need funding for that. And then citywide and regional drills. And then again, I know Daniel talked a little bit and a lot about outreach and relationships and resilience. So we're looking at enhancing our public education and preparedness programs. You saw the flyer, that's a first for EM, but it was great just to have that publication to kind of give a snapshot of what EM does and that we can start handing that out. And we'll try to get it to the citizen committee that aren't here present in person, but we'll try to get that flyer out to you. It's just kind of a nice little tool guide to kind of tell what EM does. And then continue to work with community initiatives. So this is the 10-year plan. A lot of the other presenters showed this. Right now, we're working with finance to maybe stretch this out, but right now we show everything in year one that we need. We're such a new program with just Daniel as the emergency manager and me as the director, but it's really very minimal staffing. And so we're looking to get everything in year one. We may need to, working with finance, and they'll be sharing with you next sessions on this 10-year plan for each of the agencies that presented. But right now, this just shows our staffing, what we would need in year one, and our capital equipment that I had just talked about in that previous slide. So kind of, I'm gonna, and Daniel can either come up here or jump in on this slide, is kind of tag team on it. But this is kind of the what the investment delivers for the community, but what is the benefit? What's the benefit here? And you could see kind of these bullet points. Not going to go through each one of them, but you know, reliable alert system, reliable public information, reduce long-term recovery. We talked a lot about recovery and how that takes an effort. And then stronger support for residents and business. We're constantly during a disaster when we're having the Savannah Way flooding. I was in that neighborhood, in that street, talking to neighbors constantly, and took a lot of demand from me when needing to talk to the neighbors. And so having that additional staff and being able to support the residents with their questions during a disaster or recovery effort or businesses. And then, you know, a safer, more resilient Flagstaff. As we continue to go through the risks that Daniel talked about, as we're evolving, getting more into, you know, wildfires. Thank goodness for our weather today, the last few days, that helps our wildfire threat. But we know we have things here in Flagstaff, and that we, you know, want to be able to, you know, keep our community safe. Also, in that slide, I might have not missed, Daniel. Okay, I just want to give you the opportunity if you can thought of something. And then again, we've talked a lot about building a safer, more resilient Flagstaff. That's really the goal. We really want to, you know, emergency management is more than just a response, that we cover, you know, all the cycle. We really want everything to work. We talked about relationships and collaboration, and where we're really trying to be that hub and support the other agencies. But we really want to have that work smooth and efficiently. We want local capacity. Daniel really hit on it. Like it starts here at the local level, and we better be prepared, because when you need EM, we need to be there for you. And you don't need EM until you need EM, and that's what we're here for. And so we want to be able to be that resource and be that little local, have the capacity in EM to be able to respond. And then just again, I'm not going to look at every one of these, but more resilient community. And I think that we all want that. I think all of us that have presented all want that, to be a strong and resilient community. Hey, we're close. And so with that, where did I just go past it? Questions? So now it's just questions and discussion, if we have any, and if we don't, we want to say thank you. Who's that, Scott?
Looks like we've got Scott Strohmeyer first.
Scott, and Daniel, come on up here with me, and we can see if we can answer your question, Scott.
Can you speak to any information you have on other emergency management divisions in similar sized municipalities and what their staffing is and budget?
Yeah, I think I'm going to let Daniel, he did some research on it, and he actually worked in Tennessee, at Tennessee Task Force 3 in emergency management. They had a big program, but talk more about, you know, different programs, Daniel.
Yeah, certainly. So there is no national standard, unfortunately. There is a best practice for a community our size. They recommend the emergency management, and I should have already pulled it up. I apologize. There's a study that came out. They recommend 3 personnel for emergency management of our size, right? It's 75,000 plus, and then you add in NAU. So we can easily blossom into 80,000 people in the city, 90,000 people in the city one time. So the best practice is 3 people, but it all is unique, right? The state of Arizona is not a forward-leaning emergency management state. It's kind of on the back burner at times, it feels like. There's other states that are forward leaning. I came from obviously a different circumstance, whereas at the county level, we had 16 personnel, right? So it comes from a big adjustment period from 16 to 1. But yeah, there's no national standard, but there is best practices
And I
for,
think-
based off the
I
population.
think the county now county emergency management has how many? They have
So they have 4 currently, and they've been down to 3 personnel for about 3 months, 4 months now. So yeah, they're struggling to hold people over there, which NEU, we work fantastic with NEU. There's only one at NEU in the county. There's 3, 4 coming on board here at the end of the month. We're so small up here that we have to work together, and we communicate on incidents. If there's something going on at NEU will reach out to city and to county to give us a heads up. If it's happening in city, we'll give county and NEU a heads up, just so they are prepared as well, right? Because an incident, if there's a protest or something that's happening in the city limits, it can bleed into NEU. And the EM there needs a heads up in case they need to activate their emergency operations center.
And I think it's important too, and thanks, Daniel, is the county supports us and we support the county. NAU has an incident on their campus, we're going to go and help if they ask us to come respond. And so we're very tight together. Even at the hospital, they haven't hired yet, but an emergency management manager. So we talk quite a bit.
But with that being said, I'll just throw this caveat out there. We all have our own priorities, right? We only care about the city of Flagstaff. That is where our priority lies. And that's where if there's anything else going on, NEU will help if we can. Same with out in the county. It's the second largest county in the lower 48. It was a massive county. So because Flagstaff has our own EM program, they look elsewhere, right? They're not focused on the city. They'll be responsive when we request something. But because we do have our own EM program, they're going to expect us to stand on our own for a lot of events.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Actually, no, I was looking for like what other municipalities, has there been any research or like what Prescott or Sedona or other similar sized municipalities are doing for emergency management for budget and personnel?
So Sedona, I don't know what their budgets look like. Sedona just created its first ever emergency management program. It just developed 6 months ago. Prescott, they hired a emergency manager about almost a year ago, but I haven't heard anything about it since. And then the Yavapai County, I think there's 4 or 5 of them there. Down in the valley, it's a completely different risk and hazards. They mostly have to deal with law enforcement incidents. It could be terrorism, active shooter, whatever, and then special events, right? So it's unique. I'm sorry, Scott, I don't have the hard numbers for you. But yeah, that's how it is in the state of Arizona.
We actually have some research that we did previously, so I can pull that. I didn't bring it today, but I will pull it and send it to the group as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Alita.
Yeah, so thank you so much to all of you and all these presentations. I'm seeing how responsibly every department handles resources. And I'm amazed and appreciative about the level of coordination and cannibalization that requires. Now, I'm curious when it comes to emergency management, does ADOT provide or could they provide any assistance with, lending some of those materials like traffic, sorry, I'm not word, but the various signs and blockages that they use to control traffic, are any of those materials available to the city when there's an emergency?
Yeah, let me just jump in and Daniel can add to this. So we have an emergency management compact that we have with the state. And number of cities are part of that. And then we also have a lot of regional IGAs and intergovernmental agreements with ADOT for resources and service. We actually have also an alliance IGA, which is with the school district, NAU, Mountain Line. We have, it's many governmental units. So that's something the EM does. We can reach out to ADOT and get those resources, and they're very cooperative. They're very good working with us. And so, so yes, we would have them as a resource ask if we need it. But that
Thank
doesn't
you.
mean it's available. That's sometimes it's not available. They've already got it out on I-40 if it's a major snowstorm incident. We may not be able to use some of their resources. That's why sometimes we need our own in-house that we can have for our use. And then go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, exactly right. And Alita, thank you for the question. ADOT is a fantastic partner. I've worked with many times before already. They're very responsive. They will help out when they can. And the key thing is when they can, because like Stacy said, they also have their resources stretched thin. But they are responsive. And if it's involving incidents or involving a state road, they're there. They're there. But if it gets into the city-owned infrastructure, that's where it gets kind of, their priority is lower because of jurisdictions. Did I answer your question, Alita?
It really does. It makes sense. Thank you.
Tony, did we answer your question or did you still have a question or comment?
I feel like my question was answered by Daniel in the aspect of Coconino County versus the city of Flagstaff and sort of that responsibility being within the city. I think that the one question that is somewhat lingering for me is there a current EOC type of location that you guys are utilizing? I see like the one image that you have here, it looks like it's a fire department apparatus bay, but is there anything that's set up as command right now?
Well, let me see if I can answer that question. So we right now do not have an emergency operations center. We actually go to the county. If we got to that level, the county would open the EOC for us on our behalf.
Okay.
However, we do have an incident command post up on by Buffalo Park that's designated for, the incident itself, but not the EOC. The county would open on our behalf. But if the county's got a large incident and they're already open for a county-wide thing, we may have to open our own. And that's why that emergency response would be, trailer would be used for the EOC on site or an off-scene incident command. And
one thing in the full spirit of transparency with you, Tony, currently right now, the Coconino County does not have a physical site for an EOC. Their EOC was at the building they work in, which was the health building. And I don't know, I don't want to say anything, but they lost it because the lobby to the health building was expanded. So therefore, they don't have an EOC. They have a trailer that they will try to work out of, but it's very small. They do have another location that if they have to, they will go to. Again, it's very small, not ideal. No infrastructure is in place. It's essentially a closet.
but they're building an EOC.
They're building, but that's it's 100% grant funded, and that's 3 years out.
Right.
So that's the best case scenario.
Understood.
By the County Public Works. And so they got funding to create an EOC there. It's in design there, but you know how projects work. So, and they have a very strong capability of doing virtual also, so.
And after COVID, we are very versed in virtual EOCs. However, there is a drawback, right? Just like the virtual world. Miscommunications happen. It's easier to coordinate resources and personnel and the incident when you're in the room and you're talking freely.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Stacy. I really appreciate your presentation this evening.
Thank you, Tony.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for spending the time with us today. Appreciate it.
All we have for you today. Just a reminder, our next meeting is next Wednesday, February 25th. We will be back at this location at 3:30. And we will be looking at the financial information and kind of wrapping up that staff presentation. And so next week is to revisit some of those financial numbers so that we can get you started on deliberation as a commission. Have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to email me, and we will get those recorded with the right division to work on, create a response back to you. Thanks for your time today, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Shannon. Clapping.
Sorry, John, you're the only one in the room, so that's why I just kept